evening from Swansea, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are watching Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling, insight news, and reviews on a daily basis. And today is an absolutely just crazy day in professional wrestling. The last 48 hours have just been crazy when it comes to news in general, and we are going to be talking about a lot of it today. We're of course going to be talking about The Rock, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. We've also got to talk about Goldberg announcing his last ever wrestling match, and Shane McMahon reportedly asking to run AEW, basically. We're going to get into all of that and more on today's show. But before we do, let me shout out a couple of the comments. We have Numero 1 in the comments, shout out to you. And we have Fernando in the comments as well, shout out to you as well, who is pumped to see what The Rock is going to say tonight on SmackDown. But somebody else who I imagine is very pumped up to see The Rock tonight is Jordy In The Bank. How are you today, Jordy?
I'm great, mate. I'm fantastic. I woke up to see the news about The Rock, obviously returning to SmackDown tonight. I wasn't expecting it. I don't think anyone was expecting it. There's a video of doing some views right now of me getting Mickey Mouse to acknowledge me as his tribal chief. So I'm just kind of hoping that The Rock isn't going to come back and start shouting at me. But no, we're going to get into that straight away. I've got thoughts on it, but I'll save it for the subject.
Absolutely. And you said you weren't expecting it. It appears WWE weren't expecting it either, because they announced some things for SmackDown last night and they've now deleted the video and unannounced them from their website. We'll be getting into that in just a second. But before we do, also joining us today, we have Soul. How are you, Soul?
Oh, see, I saw this news of The Rock and I was like, that has left a bad taste in my mouth. So I went to Marks Spencer's and bought their hottest curry to actually clean the taint that's in my mouth right now when I saw this announcement of The Rock. And you know what? I'm absolutely annoyed. But you know what? We'll get into it. But I'm going to have to clean the palate because, Rocky boy, you've left a bad taste in my mouth. Good Lord. Good Lord. What are you doing, son?
Oh my gosh. We do have a comment over on Instagram, Jordy. I want to quickly read out from JMoney17. Shout out to you, who says, by the way, my fiance loves the video of Mickey acknowledging you.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. Like I said, it's done. It is doing like past 100k views on Instagram, past 200k views on TikTok. I think it is going to do some work. I think if I was WWE or Disney working in marketing, I'd look at that and I would panic, because you'd be like, well, no, we cannot associate with this person. We cannot even acknowledge that video happened.
Acknowledge the mouse, boys. Acknowledge the mouse.
It did. So there you go. I appreciate the love.
I mean, I very famously said before, somebody in WWE, we're not a dirt sheet, but a couple of years ago, somebody in WWE said to me, they thought Disney was going to buy them before Endeavor did. So it almost happened. We almost had that crossover, but not quite. But what we are going to get is The Rock on Friday Night SmackDown tonight. It has been a wild 48 hours for Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Just 48 hours ago, in fact, not even that, 30 hours ago, we thought not only was he not going to be at this year's WrestleMania, but he probably wasn't going to be at next year's WrestleMania either, because it was announced that he is going to be a lead role in Martin Scorsese's new film, which is still being written right now, but it's being shopped around per deadline. So we thought, hang on a second, maybe The Rock's wrestling career is over. But then out of nowhere last night, they announced him for SmackDown in just a press release. Triple H said it's going to change everything for the road to WrestleMania. The Rock said that he's coming for somebody and he's going to cut a promo on them. And he's also said that he's got something for the city of New Orleans as well. It's all very, very confusing. It's all changed very, very fast. And listen, maybe this has been in the works for quite some time, and maybe we're all being worked now. But the fact that they announced stuff for SmackDown last night and then unannounced it today as soon as this was announced makes me think, Jordy, this was not the plan. What's your thoughts?
It certainly feels like it wasn't the plan. That announcing things on SmackDown, that's not a work. Surely, if it is, it's a master play. But Yeah, all I can go off is, look, it's happening now. It's happening. I could be annoyed about it, which a lot of people are. Our good friend and colleague Saul, I'm sure, will fill your boots on being annoyed about it. In terms, I'm just going to speculate on what he's potentially here for. Ben, you pointed me in the right direction of a video that he'd uploaded. You know, I saw him upload the video and I didn't watch it the day before. But he uploaded a video on Instagram the day before talking about day one, and how someone said something once, and about essentially you can either say one day, as in like I'll do it one day, or this is day one and I'm going to start paving the way and making the path towards doing that thing. Because of that, I think Roman Reigns, I think we've heard them quite publicly talk about the fact that one day those two will wrestle at WrestleMania. Now, is this him waking up and going, you know what, I'm going to make that happen now? It could be that. I also do think that he could potentially be delivering some very good news to New Orleans regarding WrestleMania. I don't know. That's just a speculation as well. They're the two things that I'm looking at towards the most possibility. But if you'd have asked me 3-4 weeks ago, whenever it was, if Jey Uso was going to be the winner of the Royal Rumble, I would have said certainly not. So they keep catching me off guard. They keep sending me in the wrong direction. I really don't know, but it does certainly feel like, and this is why I think Saul has had to go and get the curry, because and wash the taste out of his mouth, because that bad taste, I think it comes from not the Rock, not the final boss. It comes from, it feels like Dwayne Johnson has just gone, no, you know what? I want to play. I said I wasn't going to, but I've decided that I want to now. So throw your plans out the window, whatever you had planned, because this is the thing that I think personally is that whatever could potentially happen, if it happens at this WrestleMania, was the plan. And then it wasn't the plan again. And now Rock has decided that it is now the plan again. So I think it could be like a repivot back towards what they were originally planning when The Rock said he was going to come for Cody, or when he counted to 3 at Bad Blood, whatever that was heading towards before he came to Netflix and give everyone a cuddle and a shot of tequila. I think we might be pivoting back towards that. So I don't know, but it does feel a little bit like Dwayne Johnson said, you know what, I've decided that I would like to partake in this year's WrestleMania, so throw some plans out the window and make room. And that will leave a bad taste, and I completely understand that.
I very rarely, in fact, I basically never wildly speculate about things behind the scenes, right? But I will do for a second here. What I think has happened here is he planned, so he clearly is like got busy with like touring or some press stuff this year, I believe. So he thought, okay, well, this year I won't be able to do all the Raws or SmackDowns, whatever, so I'm not going to do it, and instead I'll do it next year, WrestleMania 42, and I'll dedicate all the time to it. And then big old Martin Scorsese called him up, offered him this project, and he was like, shoot, 2 years from now, I could well be too old for this. I need to do it now. And I think, to your point, Jordy, that day one post, it wasn't just he mentioned day one, it was in quotation marks, right? The same quotation marks Roman Reigns used on his post, referencing day one after he lost the championship last year. I think, oftentimes, I think we look too much into certain things as wrestling fans. When it comes to the day one thing, I think they're making it as blatant as possible. But there are other theories, such as Numero One Superfly saying The Rock will be there just so Solo can reveal to the world he did it for The Rock. If that finally happens for you, Numero One, I will be delighted.
That is an implication, though, just quickly on that.
Yeah.
That is an implication that can lead to Roman and The Rock, because then Roman's going
Yeah.
to be annoyed about that, obviously, because he's turned Solo against him and essentially gave Solo the role of tribal chief. So that can actually lead to the Rock and Roman storyline, I think. So we could get both.
Imagine if we end up getting what I predicted for half this year originally, before I predicted the other triple threat match, where I thought for this year's WrestleMania, after last year's WrestleMania, it was going to be Cody, Reigns, and Rock this year. Imagine if they find a way back to that now. I mean, this Elimination Chamber match would be absolute nonsense if that's the case.
Yeah,
but
true.
quite frank, I'm going to be honest, Jordy, I can't get my head around any of this if he is factored into the plans. But, Soul, what's your thoughts on this situation?
Here we go.
This curry's really spicy. Right. First things out the way. What's he's going to announce? Am I partaking of that opinion, right? I think The Rock's either going to announce where WrestleMania is next year, and I think it could be, as he said, a treat for New Orleans. I think it's going to be New Orleans or Hawaii. Personally, is what I think it's going to be. He'll either announce something new for the WWE in the terms of, you know, an event or something like that, or maybe a crossover event or something they're doing, something big for the company. Or 3, he is actually saying, I'm going to join the road to WrestleMania and WrestleMania 41 or whatever, right? If he is wrestling at WrestleMania 41, it is a spit in the face of every single man and woman in the back of that locker room, in my personal opinion, and here's why. Imagine you bust your behind for the company, working all the house shows, working all the Raws and SmackDowns, just to get onto WrestleMania and get that payday. Not the Andre Battle Royale rubbish, to actually get onto a WrestleMania card and have a match, a feud, a possibility to get showcased on the, you know, the showcase of the Immortals, as they call it, right? Only to be told, sorry, your match has been cut because Dwayne wants to come back and work a program. Because he likes to come back and swing his massive hog around just so he can get onto that card. You're spitting in the face of the men and women that technically, Rock, work underneath you. You're the boss coming in and now showcasing your power of authority. And I don't care if people say, this was always the plan, this was always the plan. No, it wasn't always the plan. Why would you do the tease of Bad Blood? Why would you then swerve it at Raw after the Raw Netflix? And then now you're changing it all of a sudden and announcing it beforehand and not like a surprise or something like that. Then you want people to turn on and tune into this, right? As well, WrestleMania has so much that has to put onto it. They've got all the belts they need to put on, from the men's world, the women's world, the main men's, the main women's, the women's mid-card, the men's mid-card, the women's tag, the men's tags. They have to get all that on because you have to showcase it. It's basically the big things, right? These are the belts that people should be wanting to fight after and become champion, because if they're not going to be showcased on WrestleMania, what's the point in going after them if you're not going to get the big showcase match, right? And I know people as well are complaining, well, if Rock's coming back, he has to main event. So we then have the Rumble tell us that Charlotte should main event, Jay should main event, and people are thinking, well, Cena's coming back for his last WrestleMania. He should main event as well. Well, Punk, Seth, and Roman are some of the biggest draws in that company. They should also main event. And now The Rock's coming back and people want him to main event. 2 people can only main event, folks. And whether you think night 1 even counts to anything, or if it only matters at night 2, at the end of the day, there's only 4 people that can get that spot of being the closing act of the end of WrestleMania. They could do a tag, they could do whatever, but no, you have the belts of the champions that are always going to be there. And what does it say as well for this Crown Jewel Championship as well? If the people that have to hold on to these main belts to then fight the other representation of their belts in Saudi Arabia later in the year don't even do something as great as main event of WrestleMania. If you don't want the winner of the Royal Rumble to main event of WrestleMania, just say so. I don't think anyone would actually really give 2 flying Fs if they don't or do from the Royal Rumble. But when you periodically always say the main event, Michael Cole's, this is for the main event of WrestleMania. That's why they're always hanging by the ropes and doing the stupid Shawn Michaels spot from the early 90s. Just don't say that. Just don't say that. And people as well complaining like, well, we need to have, you know, the equality reason and have the women and the men get one main event as well. We haven't had that for a while. We haven't had that since, I think, 36 when Sasha and Bianca Belair did it. We are due for that right now. We've got a young, great star in Tiffany Stratton who's got a great backing by the audience behind her. She's also got the championship. Charlotte Flair is one of our biggest women draws. Let's have them do a main event. And then, you know, The Rock's going to come in and be like, well, no, that's what I should do. It's like, if you want the 50-50 booking of the men and the women to get that, then you can't just then say, oh, the nostalgia star who can't hang it up and realize he's done and he's dusted coming in because he wants that one moment. Look, I get Rock and Roman's a big match for a lot of people, and a lot of people want to see that match. Curry's fighting back. But you know what? Sometimes things shouldn't happen. How long did we want Undertaker and Sting for? People wanted that as the big dream match, and it never happened. Heck, look at Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar. Everyone wanted a match, and they had 3 stinkers back to back. Sometimes the things you want shouldn't be delivered because they will not meet up to your expectation of reality, right? If Rock wants to have a match at WrestleMania, will it sell tickets? Absolutely. Will people tune in for it? Absolutely. Will it be the benefit long-term? Probably not, because what's going to happen? He's going to go away and do a movie for the rest of the year, while the people who don't get to be on that card have to do the house shows, the weekly TV, and get to be the actual backbone of this company.
I will say two things real quick on that note. Firstly, I do agree with you completely on the main event point, but I mean, it is something they've done for years and years now. I mean, I remember I think it was WrestleMania 26, the title, the Royal Rumble winner opened the show. It wasn't 26, it was around then. They opened the show and they'd been like promoting it as the main event, and I was like, what on earth? But secondly, when it comes to The Rock, don't forget, he did also pay his dues. He was the guy on the road for so many years doing all of that
I was
stuff
about to
too.
say that. But
Keyword was.
I think
He's not there
there's
now.
one
He's earned
thing.
his
He's not there. He's not there now. He's the Hollywood movie star with the billions behind his back. He doesn't need something like a WrestleMania payday. He doesn't need that to go on to the next echelon of his career. The people that are there day in, day out, breaking their bodies and backs for the company should be getting that spotlight.
But he's helping them by being on the card. He is helping them, but more people will watch the entire card because he's on it. But where I am annoyed with it, if we're right here and we're speculating about this, is if he pulled out and then went back in last minute. That's where I have an issue with it.
Exactly. I also think one thing is that if he comes out and he says that this match against say it's Roman, if he announces that it's his final match, I think he's earned that right. As much as it's annoying, but you're right, Stoll, in that sense. If he's gonna come back and have this match and then disappear for 2 years and then come back and do the same thing again, I think that's annoying. That's really irritating. Yeah. But if he announces like, look, like I'm gonna hang my boots up, this is one last match, I do think he has earned that right. As much as it is annoying,
if it's a last match, 100%.
But and especially because then it's like, look, this is never gonna happen again. This is it now. I just don't know if that's going to be the case. I completely understand the frustrations, because if I was in that position, you would be in two minds. You think, oh, awesome, I'm going to potentially be on the same card as The Rock or in and around The Rock. Dwayne's going to be here to teach us stuff, to pass down wisdom. But I don't even think that's really the case. Doesn't seem like he has moments with people backstage. It seems there's a little handshake, a little hug. Like we've seen it with like the likes of Damian Priest and stuff like that. But he's not doing like what a CM Punk is doing right now in terms of being John Cena too. Yeah, well, Cena's away filming stuff. I think he's going to come back and do this run on the farewell and be in and around and just be there to pass on that wisdom on more of a full-time basis. But that's not what he's doing either. And I think all these things added together, unless you're a die-hard The Rock fan, I think you're going to Mania, aren't you? So like it'll be exciting.
Corn dog or something during his match. I didn't like his match.
What?
Oh no, you're not gonna watch his match, and this Clark's not gonna watch Cody versus Cena.
This is worse than what Clark said now.
Look, his match at 40 was way too long. He basically was probably in the booking committee like, oh lads, I forgot all my wrestling. Can we just do a street fight so I can actually just be like a boxer and all that? Like, yeah, like cool.
I thought it was
a good match. The Rock. I know The Rock is the guy from the Tooth Fairy, Jumanji, Mummy
I don't.
Yeah, but the 99% don't. 99% know him.
Here's the thing, I'll say this, right? Rock's amazing on the mic. That build for up to 40 last year of him on the mic was enjoyable, was funny, was entertaining. But when the bell rang, didn't care.
Oh no, I didn't.
I disagree. I'm harsh on old wrestlers, and even I thought that was a fun match.
He put on a better showing than what I've seen.
I would rather see Karrion Kross get a singles match on the Mania card because he's entertaining and I really enjoy what he's doing. I'd rather see all the other people get on the card than The Rock, because The Rock doesn't do it for me. I'm not somebody that's already got my head in the sand like the Attitude Era is the pinnacle of human evolution, and I'm like, yes, bra and panty matches and.
But you've got your head in the sand and think that The Rock came from.
No, that's different.
You've got your head in the sand and think The Rock came from the Tooth Fairy, bro. That's a different kind of head in the sand altogether. The Rock came from that Attitude Era what you're talking about.
I didn't know wrestling back then.
And that little dose of the final boss that we got. That was that little dose of the Attitude Era again, and that was why it was so frustrating when you came out with that aesthetic at Netflix, and then
just need the Attitude Era back.
The Netflix thing is the biggest joke here. None of us would be complaining as much if it wasn't for that Netflix thing where he buried everything.
Yeah, exactly. That just adds on the cream to the cake. Like, it's just an absolute. It's like we've been slapped in the face with a fish, and then the fish has been presented us as a meal. It's like you slapped up with a meal that you're trying to present to us.
I don't like the situation, but I just feel like I have to defend The Rock a little bit in what was going on. I like
this situation. I don't like. In general, I like him. I also like some of these comments. I want to read them out. Numero 1 does agree with Soul. Sean Ellis is saying, how long are we going to see Dwayne The Rock Johnson before it basically has to retire? I mean, this maybe would be the last match. If it is, I'm fine with it. Fernando says this, and it's true. We didn't get Sting versus Undertaker because WWE dropped the ball on it. They did. They would have earned so much money on it. And of course, then Sting also got hurt too, which was another factor. But J-Money17 says he's been a Rock fan since he was 8 years old, and says, I don't think Soul likes The Rock very much. Yeah, I
don't
think
so
yeah, put one and one together there. But there is one possibility, lads, which we haven't discussed here, which I actually think is, the most probable outcome here. And that's that The Rock comes in, announces WrestleMania or announces whatever, right? Then just puts a couple of fingers in the air or something, and then just goes, the final boss is always 2 steps ahead, and leaves. And then we won't find anything out until
if he says, just sit back and enjoy the ride the final boss is going to take you on, I think I'm going to lose it. I think I'm going to lose it.
I'm gonna try and pull out my Ethernet cable so I can physically try and slap Netflix. You know what? It's funny as well. I can't watch Raw and SmackDown on Netflix because my phone's not been updated on the iOS because I can't watch Netflix.
Oh,
live.
I had the same issue a couple of weeks ago.
You know what? I might not actually update this. I was gonna update it. I've deleted a lot of apps. Maybe I just won't. I was spite.
That'll show.
Oh gosh. I mean, I will say this. If that happens, I'm going off on one tomorrow. I will tell you that much. I don't care how much I like The Rock. That would annoy the hell out of me. But talking about somebody else who, well, not potentially retiring, is retiring, Goldberg has announced that he will be retiring this summer, which leads to the question, who should retire him? Jordy, I'll send this one to you first.
Oh, who should retire Goldberg? Now, listen, I'm not the Goldberg's biggest fan, so I'm not really sad to see him retiring. Could he put on one last match? See, now, not to throw it back to the past subject, I am much more excited. I think The Rock can put on a better match than what Goldberg can at this stage of his career, but I'm really not that fussed. Who would I like to see retire Goldberg? I think Bron Breakker, in the sense of passing that baton. I think Bron gives me that Goldberg aura and vibe, whether it's the siren, whatever it is. I don't know. The spear, it could be as well. Bron has just got that kind of animalistic, like, if it's scary, like, it's genuinely scary. Like, look what he did to Speed. Like, poor Speed, man. Like, he absolutely went through him. And maybe it's personal because I'm not a massive fan of Goldberg. I don't want Goldberg to win his last match. I want him to kind of hand it over, and I think Bron could be the perfect person for him to do that too. There's a very other obvious one that I know a lot of people are vying for, but I'd actually be more interested, I think, in seeing Bron Breakker do it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do. I'm going to be honest, Jordy. I agree with you. I would prefer the Bron Breakker match. I think that would be, again, it's just Bron Breakker is this generation's Goldberg a little bit, right? Goldberg, Bobby Lashley, all those. He's gone into Bron Breakker a little bit, I believe. And Gunther, I'm sure, would put on an absolute not a banger with Goldberg, but I think Gunther would probably bring out the better match. But I think for putting somebody over, Bron Breakker would benefit a lot more. Numero 1 says Goldberg's final opponent should be Gunther. Goldberg will screw Gunther at WrestleMania, and we will get a storyline where Goldberg will continue to screw Gunther until SummerSlam. Numero 1, this Sunday, 2 p.m. UK time. I don't know what time that is in America, but 2 p.m. UK time, we have a video coming out on this channel where I give 5 ways that they can drag out the Jey Uso and Gunther feud until WrestleMania. Of course, it's 8 weeks away. It's a long build, but one of those ideas has got something very much to do with Goldberg. So make sure you guys check that out. But Soul, I want to get your thoughts. Who do you think should be the one to retire Goldberg?
I would like to see it be Bron Breakker, only if Goldberg passed over the jackhammer to him in a symbolic transition, like celebration, like to give him a jackhammer finish. I think would be very, very cool. However, I do want to bring up a very interesting fact that this year we are going to see a big star from WWE, WCW, ECW, and Ring of Honor / also TNA retire this year, which was obviously Christopher Daniels, Ring of Honor / TNA. ECW, which is Sabu, is wrestling his last match on that weekend of WrestleMania. Goldberg, obviously, and Cena. I mean, you can even throw, Tanahashi for New Japan, which is technically next year. This is like that. I don't think that's ever happened before. Like that really is symbolizing the time period we are in now for wrestling. Is that a lot of the old guard are stepping down. Like time is catching up, and I know a lot of people now joke about Goldberg, but I think Goldberg gets too much flack, in my opinion. If you go back and watch the old Nitros from his undefeated streak, his US Championship reign, him beating Hollywood Hogan for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, the dude was the most popular wrestler in that time period. I know a lot of people give him flack for the Bret Hart thing, but honestly, I don't think he fully deserves it, in my personal opinion. Yes, he was the kick that initially gave the concussion, but Bret continued wrestling on. That didn't help his situation. Of course, medical technology has advanced a lot more. We know a lot about more, but I think he gets too much flack. He was the initial thing about it, but he wasn't, the end-all. Yes, I know people look back his original WWE run as a bit of a stinker. He was only there for like a year. And then he came back. The thing about Goldberg is if you look at his comeback match, he did it for his family. He did it so his son could see him as the superhero from the 90s. Every kid idolizes their dad, and he should too. Goldberg is a good wrestler. He is worthy of a Hall of Fame career. I will enjoy seeing his last match forever, how long it is. If it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, heck, if he doesn't want to rock 40 minutes tag team match that just puts me to sleep, go ahead. I still think it will be entertaining and a good way to send off a man's legendary wrestling career.
I will just jump on this real quick, though, right, to play devil's advocate for a second, because I agree with everything you just said, but why are you excited for Goldbergs and not The Rock's?
I thought exactly that. I thought if we can go back and watch Nitro, why can't we go back and watch Raw and SmackDown, a show that was named after The Rock?
I've watched more Monday Night Nitros than Attitude Era.
I will say no. In Goldberg's defense, I wasn't a fan back then. It's like I've never been a huge Goldberg guy, so it's like I'm not gonna. I know people are, and I've got the respect for the work he did. But it's just, to me, I'm just not that fussed about it. It'll be good, and I hope they do a good program, and I hope for his sake, because I think of Goldberg now, and the first thing I think about is the Taker match, and I hope he does something to erase that from people's memories and to leave a fond impression of the wrestler that he once was, rather than remembering that match in Saudi. So I really genuinely do hope in that sense that it's a good match.
I mean, the last match that I can think of that people really liked was it him and Lashley in Saudi at Crown Jewel? That was actually pretty decent. Like, people were like, oh, it's actually pretty solid. I don't mind that. Obviously, he's had a bit of stinkers with, I think of Drew and him at the Rumble during the shutdown era. I think of, obviously, him and KO for the Universal Championship. Fiend and him. Obviously, David's going to hate that one. But, like, he works because, yes, I know the zeitgeist of the IWC hate Goldberg, but people still chant his name. They still chant his name. Right, they still chant the Goldberg. He still sells figures. He's still in the games, and people like to use him. He's not like somebody that are like, oh, he's in something I'm going to turn away. But as soon as they get a Goldberg autograph card, they're putting that thing in a sealed packet and going to flog it off on eBay for the hundreds of thousands of dollars it's probably worth, right? I don't mind Goldberg, right? I think that, like, remember, like, back in the day, people were thinking, like, oh, he's going to be in AEW and him and Wardlow are going to go all in, and everybody was like, yay! Like, I won't lie, that would have been like a fun exhibition match just to have on the card.
Oh, it would have been, yeah.
What about the people that are working all year at AEW and have got to put aside because Bill Goldberg's decided that he wants to turn off and kick them off the card?
So AEW's a newer company. They kind of need that bit of a stardom.
Okay. One other thing that I do want to say against Goldberg for a second, because I will say this, he's become, like, over the years, he did become a really, really safe wrestler, really good wrestler as well, right? I mean, just a few years ago, him and Lesnar, so many people praised that match at WrestleMania 33. But if you go back for like the first half of his undefeated streak in WCW, the dude genuinely couldn't wrestle. He was just being like the most unsafe worker on the card. And I think that's why he got so much heat. It was because he was put in, which isn't really necessarily his own fault, but he was just put in a big position so quickly because, to your point, Soul, he got so over. But at the same time, you got to look after your worker safety. So,
You've got to
maybe
train
that's more
him better in that
WCW.
sense. You've got to train him better in that sense. Like
Yeah.
you can put that on Bale, but like if Goldberg keeps like being too stiff in matches, you have to train that out of him. Like that's
Exactly.
that's
It
the
is
coach's
more on
job.
WCW.
It's more WCW's fault. Clearly, that the power plant didn't have these sophisticated trainers, the development, or the knowledge of how to actually build protective and safe wrestling techniques. Like, I don't think WCW should have ever had the power plant, in my personal opinion. But of course, then we never would have got Goldberg. We never got moments that connected people. Like, think about how many wrestlers in that watched during that era are now in it because they saw somebody like Goldberg and saw what he did and his presence and his runs. Like, he's left an impact. And I generally think every wrestler, no matter if I don't like him or anyone doesn't like him or what, deserves to have a final match in front of a crowd, whether it's 10, 100, or 100,000 people. Everyone deserves a retirement match.
Absolutely. No, I do agree with you on that one. By the way, to clarify, I'm glad Goldberg is getting a retirement match, and I am looking forward to it. But yeah, whether it's against Gunther or Braun Breaker, I'd be up for either, but I'd say one of those two for sure. Shard says Breaker. T6 Warlord says, imagine Dom retires Goldberg.
I'm busy.
Oh, gosh. Right, let's move on then. Final topic, shall we? Because Jonathan Coachman, the coach, former WWE commentator, on-screen personality, etc., 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 claimed on his podcast this week that Tony Khan ghosted Shane McMahon after the two had a meeting, and in the meeting, Shane McMahon asked for some control of AEW and equity in the promotion in order for him to come into the company. Now, of course, this entire thing happened around the time the Vince doc came out, and Shane, I think, was the only person in that entire documentary to come out of it looking good. He came out of it and his stock was, super high. Maybe he tried to play those cards a bit, but Tony Khan, according to Jonathan Coachman, ghosted him. So let's just say for a second, these reports by Jonathan Coachman are real. Let's go off that presumption for a second. Soul, do you think Tony Khan made the right decision ghosting Mr. Shane O'Mac?
Ghosting is a very harsh term, shall we say? I mean, also it's the coach. Isn't this also the guy that said somebody didn't like somebody because of their hairstyle or something like that, or makeup? Like it's the coach. I don't think his sources are or his.
He said stuff which is also true. It's hard to. The thing is, the question here is, right, this is somebody who is in the know. He knows a lot of guys. But at the same time, how does he really... The thing is, he's also close with Shane McMahon. That's what I will say with the matter. I'm recklessly speculating again. Maybe this came from Shane McMahon's camp into himself, but carry on, Tom.
All right. If I'm going to talk about AEW, let me put on my AEW Dynamite Diamond ring as well. Mwah, beautiful, beautiful little thing. Right. Should Shane have been in control of AEW in any sense of the word? No. At the end of the day, people don't like Tony Khan's booking. Okay, fine. But he has given us great booking moments. Kenny and Hangman, Punk and MJF, Timeless Tony Storm and Mariah May. Pretty much AEW's peak from late 2020 to early 2022. If anything, if I was Tony Khan, I would give him to the thing that essentially I describe as a leech to AEW, and that's Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is a leech to AEW because it takes away the attention, it takes away some of the stars, it adds on to travels and productions and storytelling and all that jazz. Give them Ring of Honor. And I would literally be like, just finalize some of the stuff you want to do with me, but go free reign and do what you want to do. Like, there's so much I could critique about Ring of Honor. It doesn't need to exist. I mean, honestly, if I had the reign, I would do a year of Ring of Honor, then one final pay-per-view called Death with Honor, and then just unify all the Ring of Honor championships with AEW ones. I know people won't like that because Ring of Honor had a place. It was the biggest place in the early 2000s, but it's not the early 2000s anymore. It's the early 2010s or mid 2020s, right? Let's put it out to pasture, right? But Shane McMahon running AEW, I don't know, because some of his stuff has been bad. I mean, didn't you do the Royal Rumble in 2022 where Brock and Ronda Rousey won, or like his thing was messed up and he had to come out with the music and he looked bloated and everything like that? Like, I think Shane O'Mac is a good guy. We've seen from the documentary that he came off very popular from that and very positively as well. If he came to AEW and was like, well, I know your history. I know the history with Hangman and Kenny. I know Kenny and the Bucks. I know all their history from New Japan. I know this, and this. I know all the storylines going into this. I know where we could take one person and connect with another one, as well as seasons thing with that. If he knew the product and knew what was going into it, then maybe Tony Khan should have maybe thought of bringing him in as an advisor and maybe give him like 5% of stock. But if he was coming to me like, right, you be the money guy, I'll lead the entire ship. I don't know who this Swain Strickland guy is, or Prince or whatever that is. I just want to come in and do my own thing. I want to set up AW Underground and rip off Bloodsport, and I want 75% of the company. Tony Khan would just be like, yeah, I'm going to put that away in the little bin right there. Like, that's fair. At the end of the day, business deals happen and business meetings happen, but sometimes deals don't come out of those meetings. For every like meeting probably Vince had back in the day, or Triple H is having right now, or Nick Khan, how many of them actually come to fruition? There's nothing wrong with a meeting. You understand the terms from one party to another. You understand what you could benefit, what you could lose. It's whether you make the decision of to agree to that terms that you then could see how it goes into practice. I mean, heck, what if Shane took over and AEW literally went to 2015 TNA? Like, that's bad. That's really bad. But we won't know because it's just going to be another one of those crystal balls. Could have been, should have been, shouldn't have been. We don't know.
Very good points indeed. And I do really like your shout, by the way, about having him, potentially control Ring of Honor, because if I'm correct, as far as I think we know, Tony Khan owns Ring of Honor. AEW does not own Ring of Honor. So technically, he could have given some equity in Ring of Honor to Shane McMahon. So then AEW, he wouldn't have any of AEW at all, but he could have creative control and be employed by by Ring of Honor. And then, if things go well and they end up selling it again, he's earned some money from Ring of Honor. So I love that shout. I will also defend Shane for a second, though, creatively, right? Because we've heard certain things, certain rumors over the years. But here is the thing. We've never once seen Shane when he's not been under his dad when it comes to creative. And we know how much, him and his dad clashed, and, how at times, there were some issues there. But, Jordy, I want to get your thoughts on all this. Should Shane O'Mac have gone to AEW, or should Tony Khan have hired him, I should say?
It's a tricky one because very much kind of to what Saul said, really. We don't know what was said in the meeting. We don't know what Shane brought to the table, realistically, how kind of out there he might have been. His ideas might have been crazy. You never know. So in that situation, yeah, all right, like maybe he shouldn't ghost someone, but like, yeah, keep him at bay. But I don't know. If I was in Tony Khan's position, which is a position of you're not in you are in competition with WWE. I know people like to say they're not. That's a different conversation, but they're the main competitor. Shane's motive to do better than WWE, but would probably be greater than anyone's, even more than Tony Khan's, for AEW to actually beat WWE. It's similar to why Cody's motive when he was an EVP, of why that was kind of so great, because it went so deep. So maybe in that sense, I don't know about equity. I don't know about stuff like that, giving that away, but he definitely loves wrestling. He loves the game. Unless he came with some outlandish, crazy ideas to me, I would have given him a counter offer and said, look, like I can't give you what you've asked for, but if you want to be around, like we can discuss a role that we think's more suitable for now, with a potential to progress to more in the future, but we can't just give that away straight away. That's how I probably would have approached it. But like, I am a fan of Shane, and like you said, the reason why he clashed in the past with WWE kind of, well, if the documentaries, if anything to believe, it's because he was kind of being the good guy in a sense and being like, no, I don't like this. I don't want a part of it. I'm out. And yeah, I just don't know. Shane McMahon has been around the game his whole life, like more than most people, more than pretty much anyone on the planet in terms of like a percentage of their life that has been taken up by professional wrestling. Having someone like that around, I think personally is valuable. Whether you're going to let them completely run it, I think is different. But I think there could have been some value in it personally. But like I say, you never know what was said in that meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, definitely at least some level of value somewhere. But I like your Ring of Honor idea, so I really do think that's probably the best.
I did too. You know, until Shane McMahon just cut my power to my whole bloody street. So
well, no,
yeah.
maybe it was maybe Tony Khan heard your idea and was like, we can't be letting that get out there, right? So
you know what I can tell.
Continue.
Yeah, you know what? In the darkness, though, I can't even see the size of the Rock's ego in here. So I mean, it's pretty entertaining, though. I mean, I just say,
must be dark.
Oh gosh, nobody take a shot every time Soul this is rocking this podcast. You'd be you'd be absolutely hammered. But that does bring us to the end of the show, guys. Fernando says, I wouldn't trust Shane McMahon if I was Tony Khan. Shard says, Tony Khan isn't as bad as people make him seem as a booker. 100%. He's just got a million things to do. Nobody can do what he does. I always say it. It's impossible. It's crazy he manages to do what he already does do. But that does bring us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining me, Jordy. Thank you much for joining me, Soul. We will be back same time, same place tomorrow to talk about whatever The Rock was talking about. We hope to see you guys then.